Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight, we are stepping into a story that has padded softly alongside humanity for thousands of years. A story woven through hearth fires and temple walls, across ship decks and city streets. Cats have watched empires rise and fall from windowsills and doorways, present but often overlooked, familiar yet endlessly mysterious. These small, observant animals have shaped daily life in ways few people ever pause to consider. They followed early farmers, guarded precious stores, crossed oceans, and settled into homes as both workers and companions. They inspired devotion, fear, art, superstition, and affection, sometimes all at once. Wherever people built shelter, traded goods, or told stories, cats were often there too. This is a history told not only through kings and battles, but through ordinary moments. Through protection, survival, and quiet partnership between species. It is a journey that stretches from ancient settlements to modern living rooms, revealing how something so familiar can carry such a deep and surprising past. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, allow your breathing to slow. Let your body soften, and allow your eyes to grow heavy. Release the day, and let your thoughts drift as we explore this long and fascinating history together. Let's begin. Cats shaped city survival by limiting rodents that spread deadly disease. Cities concentrate life, and they also concentrate problems. Where people gather, food waste gathers too, and rodents flourish. In past centuries, markets, grain stores, and crowded housing created perfect conditions for mice and rats. Those animals could do more than steal food. They could help diseases move through neighborhoods with terrifying speed. Cats were not a cure, but they were part of the daily defense that many households relied on. A skilled hunter could reduce local rodent pressure, which meant fewer pests in kitchens, fewer gnawed sacks in storerooms, and fewer unwanted visitors in sleeping quarters. That effect mattered most for the poor, because one lost bag of grain could mean hunger. In that sense, cats were woven into public health long before anyone understood microbes. They were living pest control in alleys and basements, working without wages, shaping survival in the background of urban history. A city's safety was sometimes measured in whiskers. Cats likely began domestication beside early grain stores in the Middle East. Picture the first villages storing harvests in clay jars and granaries. Grain brought security, but it also invited mice that could erase months of work in a few nights. Wild cats that tolerated people had an advantage, because those settlements were hunting grounds that refilled every evening. Humans did not need to train them at first. The best hunters simply stayed close, and the least fearful cats raised kittens nearby. Over generations, a loose partnership formed, built on proximity and opportunity rather than obedience. That helps explain why cats kept their independent streak even as they moved indoors. In that early landscape of wheat fields and storage rooms, the earliest bond between people and cats was practical, quiet, and surprisingly modern. It began with food, and it became companionship. Cats entered Europe widely through trade routes after the Roman era. When the Western Roman world changed, trade paths shifted, adapted, and found new paths across seas and rivers. Those movements carried more than cloth and metal. They carried living passengers. Cats could travel with merchants, fishermen, and sailors who needed protection for stored food and goods. A cat that kept a warehouse safer in one port could be carried to the next, then gifted, traded, or simply left behind to thrive. Over generations, that slow spread becomes a continent-wide presence. This kind of history is easy to miss because it has no single hero. It is built from ordinary journeys and practical choices. Yet it reshapes ecosystems and culture. As cats became common in European towns, they entered language, folklore, and the rhythms of daily work. Trade routes are often described as lines on the map, but they were also corridors of companionship. A cat stepping onto a new dock could change the local balance of pests and change people's lives with it. Cats appeared in trench life during the First World War. Trenches were built for war, but they became homes in the ugliest sense. Mud, rats, and constant fear shaped daily survival. In that environment, cats arrived for the same reason they always had. They hunted rodents. Yet their impact went further than pest control. A cat in a trench could offer a moment that felt human again. Soldiers fed them scraps, watched them play, and found a sliver of normal life in an abnormal world. A cat could also move freely where people could not, slipping along duckboards and sheltering in dugouts. That freedom made it seem brave, or at least untouched by the rules of war. Letters and memories from the period sometimes mention these animals as small sources of relief. It is a powerful contrast. The most mechanized conflict the world had seen still left room for the oldest kind of companion. In the middle of artillery and wire, a cat could remind someone they were still alive. Plague-era letters mention cats as comforts amid fear and loss. During plague outbreaks, daily life could shrink to a few urgent concerns: food, safety, and who might be gone tomorrow. Letters from those periods often carry a raw human need to cling to what feels steady. In that atmosphere, a cat could become a small anchor. A warm body on a bed, a familiar routine at mealtime, and a creature that still asked for attention could make the world feel less unreal. That comfort mattered even when fear was everywhere, because it reminded people that life continued in ordinary motions. Cats also carried complicated associations, since rodents and fleas played roles in disease spread, yet the emotional value of a cat in the home could remain strong. These mentions in correspondence are powerful because they are not written to impress. They are written to survive. A line about a cat is a line about the human heart trying to stay intact. When everything else felt uncertain, a cat's presence could feel like a promise that tenderness had not vanished. Cats in wartime shelters helped people cope during air raids. Air raids forced families into basements, stations, and public shelters where time moved strangely. Minutes could feel endless, and silence could be as frightening as noise. In some cities, cats found their way into these spaces, sometimes carried in by owners, sometimes adopted by communities that refused to face the dark alone. A cat in a shelter could change the emotional temperature. People could stroke fur instead of counting explosions. Children could watch a cat settle and take that as permission to breathe. Even a single animal could create a sense of normal life inside a place built for emergency. There is also a practical side, because shelters stored food and attracted pests, and cats could help keep those problems down. Yet the deeper role was psychological. A cat does not understand war, and that innocence can be comforting. It can remind people that the world still contains ordinary creatures with ordinary needs. In the hardest hours, a cat could make courage feel possible. Prison diaries and camps sometimes mention cats as rare sources of comfort. In prisons and camps, people were often stripped of privacy, control, and the small habits that make a day feel human. In that setting, a cat could become an astonishing gift. A cat might slip through fences, appear near kitchens, or linger where scraps were available. For someone confined, The sight of a free animal could be painful and hopeful at once. Diaries and memoirs sometimes describe cats as moments of softness in a harsh routine. Feeding a cat could restore a sense of agency. Caring for a living creature could offer a reason to keep going. The cat's presence could also create a link to the outside world, to homes, streets, and ordinary life beyond the wire. These accounts matter because they reveal what people hold on to when everything is taken away. A cat is not a solution to suffering, but it can be a thread of dignity. In places designed to break the spirit, a cat could help someone remember they still had one. Sailors believed ship cats could predict storms through behavior changes. Life at sea trained people to watch for signals because warning could mean survival. Sailors studied clouds, wind shifts, and the feel of the deck underfoot. They also watched animals. A cat that suddenly hid, grew restless, or refused food could seem like a living alarm. Part of this belief came from respect. Cats noticed subtle changes in sound and vibration, and they reacted fast to unfamiliar conditions. Part of it came from fear, because storms felt like invisible enemies rising out of nowhere. On a ship, superstition was not always irrational. It was a way to stay alert when instruments were limited and help was far away. A ship cat became a companion and a barometer of mood, and sailors read its body language like a second sky. Even when the prediction failed, the watching itself kept crews attentive, and attention kept people alive. A 9,000-year-old cat burial was found on Cyprus. Cyprus is an island, and wild cats are not native there. So when archaeologists uncovered a human burial placed carefully beside a cat, it carried a powerful implication. Someone had brought that animal across open water, which is not the kind of effort people make for a creature they do not value. The burial was arranged with intention, not with indifference. It suggests affection, status, or meaning that went beyond utility. It also hints at seafaring skills in a world we often imagine as simple and land-bound. A small boat, a living animal, and a long crossing together can change how you picture early life. Long before written history, a person on Cyprus wanted a cat close in death as in life. That choice speaks across millennia with startling clarity. Pompeii mosaics and frescoes show cats living closely with people. Pompeii froze a moment of Roman life that would otherwise be lost, and its walls still speak. In mosaics and frescoes, you can find animals woven into domestic scenes, including cats in the spaces where people ate, worked, and rested. That matters because art inside a home is not a museum display. It is a choice about what feels familiar and worth seeing every day. A cat pictured in a household setting suggests proximity, not distance. It hints that people expected a cat to be underfoot, near food, near conversation, and near the private rhythms of family life. Pompeii also preserves ordinary details that history often forgets, from cookware to graffiti. When a cat appears among those details, it feels like a living presence rather than a symbol. You can almost imagine the real animal that inspired the image, moving through sunlight in a courtyard. Disaster preserved a domestic truth, and that truth includes cats. Cats influenced language with idioms that traveled through trade and migration. Cats do not only leave paw prints, they leave phrases. As people moved and traded, they carried expressions that used cats to describe luck, suspicion, curiosity, and stealth. Idioms work because they compress a shared observation into a few words, and cats give writers a rich supply of observations. They creep quietly. They watch without blinking. They pounce with sudden certainty. When a community repeats these phrases, it also repeats a cultural attitude toward cats, whether affectionate, wary, or amused. Over time, idioms can outlive the conditions that created them. A phrase born in a port city can migrate inland with merchants. A saying that began as street humor can end up in literature, then in everyday speech. This is history you speak without noticing. When you use a cat expression, you are inheriting centuries of shared life with this animal. Language turns companionship into metaphor, and metaphor becomes a map of how humans see the world. Ancient Egyptians mummified cats in vast numbers for ritual devotion. In Egypt, cats were not only household hunters. They were woven into religion, art, and public life. Pilgrims traveled to sacred sites and brought offerings, and cats became part of that spiritual economy. Some temples raised cats specifically for votive gifts. When the animals died, they could be prepared with care and wrapped for burial, like a message sent to the divine. Archaeologists have uncovered cat cemeteries and caches that show just how large this practice became. It was devotion, but it was also organization, labor, and trade in linen, resins, and containers. The scale is hard to picture until you imagine rooms filled with neatly wrapped bundles, each one representing a prayer. For Egyptians, a cat could be a living companion and a sacred symbol at once. Killing a cat in ancient Egypt could bring severe legal punishment. In a society where cats carried sacred associations, harming one could be seen as more than cruelty. It could be an attack on order itself. Ancient writers described moments when crowds reacted with fury after a cat was killed, and authorities struggled to restrain public outrage. That response only makes sense if cats were protected not just by affection, but by shared belief and social pressure. Imagine living in a place where an animal on the street had a kind of legal and spiritual shield. Your everyday choices would change. How you drove a cart, how you stored food, and how you treated a stray at your door would suddenly matter in public. It shows how deeply animals can shape law and behavior when a culture decides they stand for something larger than themselves. In Egypt, reverence could be enforced. Early zoos displayed wildcats, shaping public ideas about domestic cats. When zoos and menageries displayed wildcats, they offered city crowds a rare look at feline relatives that most people would never meet. Seeing a lynx, a leopard, or another wild cat up close could change how visitors thought about the cat at home. The house cat suddenly looked like part of a larger family, connected to predators with power and grace. That connection could spark admiration, fear, or both. It could also feed the Victorian appetite for classification, the urge to sort nature into types and ranks. A visitor might leave the zoo and look at their own cat differently, noticing the stalk, the sudden stillness, and the hunting posture that seems to switch on in an instant. Zoos were also places of storytelling, with signs and guides that explained behavior, habitat, and origin. Those explanations shaped public imagination, sometimes accurately, sometimes with sensational flair. Either way, the wildcat exhibit reframed the domestic cat as a miniature hunter with ancient instincts, not merely a soft ornament for the home. The cat burglar phrase reflects long-standing beliefs about stealth and agility. The phrase cat burglar did not appear by accident. It leans on an old, widely shared idea that cats move through the world with a special kind of quiet control. They climb without clatter, land without a thud, and slip through tight spaces as if doors were optional. Long before modern alarm systems, households already knew that the most effective intruder was the one you never heard. Cats provided the perfect metaphor because people watched them prowl roofs, fences, and window ledges at night. The language also reveals admiration mixed with suspicion. A cat is graceful, but it is also hard to supervise. That combination made it a natural symbol for stealthy wrongdoing in stories, newspapers, and everyday speech. When a culture turns an animal into an insult, it is admitting something true. Cats are astonishing at entering and exiting a place unseen, and people have been noticing that for centuries. Roman households kept cats to protect food, scrolls, and supplies. Rome was a world of storerooms. There were kitchens stacked with grain, warehouses near ports, and private libraries where scrolls were precious and vulnerable. Rodents were not a minor annoyance. They were a threat to meals, money, and knowledge. Cats fit neatly into that problem because they worked without needing constant direction. A well-fed house still needed a hunter, especially at night. Over time, the presence of cats in domestic spaces became normal enough to appear in art and decoration, tucked into scenes of daily life. It is easy to imagine a Roman child watching a cat patrol the edge of a pantry, or a scholar listening for scratching near a shelf of papyrus. In a civilization that prized order and property, a cat was a small guardian with a big job. Protection could look like a purr. Cats traveled the Silk Road as living pest control for caravans. Caravans carried silk, spices, glass, paper, and stories. But they also carried food that attracted mice. A single gnawing animal could ruin grain, chew leather, or contaminate stores that had to last for weeks. Cats offered a solution that did not need extra tools, and they earned their keep in the simplest way possible. As merchants moved between oases and market towns, cats could move with them, slipping between cultures as easily as trade goods. That travel helped spread domestic cats far beyond their original heartlands. It also meant that a cat might witness an astonishing range of human life, from desert camps to crowded bazaars, without ever understanding the value of the cargo beside it. The Silk Road was not only a route for luxury, it was also a pathway for small companions that reshaped everyday survival. Sometimes history rides on soft paws. Viking-age ships likely carried cats to safeguard stored provisions. A Viking voyage was a test of planning. Food had to last, ropes had to hold, and timber hulls had to survive cold spray and rough seas. Rodents were a quiet danger aboard any ship packed with supplies, because chewing and spoilage could turn a journey into hunger. A cat was a practical passenger, small enough to feed, and skilled enough to patrol tight spaces below deck. Norse life on land also created opportunities for cats because farmsteads stored grain through long winters. That combination made cats useful in both ship and home, which helped them spread with Norse movement across coasts and islands. It also adds an unexpected detail to the Viking image. Alongside axes and sailcloth, there may have been a watchful cat in the shadows, doing patient work while the crew slept. Survival often depends on the smallest guardians. Medieval monasteries relied on cats to protect manuscripts from mice. A medieval manuscript could take months of careful work. Scribes prepared parchment, mixed ink, and copied texts by hand in rooms that were meant to be orderly and quiet. Then a mouse could arrive and do damage in minutes. That is why cats became valuable residents in many religious houses. A good hunter protected food stores, but it also protected learning itself, because libraries and scriptoria were targets for pests. You can still find hints of this relationship in margins where scribes drew cats or wrote small lines about the animals around them. The presence of a cat also changed the rhythm of a place devoted to routine. A sudden pounce in the night, a warm shape near a hearth, and a watchful pair of eyes in a hallway all became part of monastery life. It is a striking thought, but the survival of certain texts may have depended on a cat doing its nightly rounds. Cats rode the age of exploration, guarding ships from rats. Ocean voyages turned ships into floating worlds, cramped and vulnerable. Food stores were limited, water was precious, and disease could spread quickly when conditions were crowded. Rats threatened all of that. They consumed rations, damaged cargo, and carried fleas that could spark sickness. So sailors welcomed cats as working animals with a clear purpose. A cat could patrol where humans could not, slipping into holds and corners with ease. Over long months at sea, those cats also became emotional anchors. They were living reminders of home, and their presence softened the hard edges of shipboard life. When ships reached ports, cats could step onto new continents, and some stayed behind in coastal towns, starting new local populations. Exploration is often told through maps and captains. Yet it also involved practical decisions made below deck. A sailor who brought a cat aboard was choosing survival, one quiet hunt at a time. The earliest cat art appears in Near Eastern and Egyptian traditions. Long before anyone wrote a history of cats, people drew them. In the ancient Near East and in Egypt, artists captured the curve of a back, the alert ears, and that unmistakable stillness before motion. These images show more than decoration. They show attention. A creature had to matter before it earned a place on a wall, a vessel, or a carved object meant to last. Cat images also appear in settings tied to daily life, not only to grand ceremony. That detail hints at a relationship already taking shape in kitchens, courtyards, and storerooms. Art preserves what a culture notices and what it chooses to remember. When you see a cat rendered with care in a world of gods, rulers, and war, you are seeing a quiet declaration. This animal belonged in the human story early on, and people wanted proof. Egyptian cat cemeteries reveal organized breeding and mass offerings. When archaeologists uncover places where cats were buried in huge numbers, the scale changes everything. This was not a handful of beloved pets laid to rest. It was a system. Temples could require a steady supply of animals for offerings, and that demand encouraged deliberate raising and handling. Suddenly, you can picture caretakers feeding litters, managing space, preparing wrappings, and coordinating burials with ritual calendars. Each small body represented a person's hope, fear, or gratitude. That makes the cemeteries feel less like statistics and more like a crowded archive of human emotions. They also reveal an ancient economy in motion, with craft workers producing materials and travelers carrying offerings across distances. The cat became a bridge between everyday life and the divine, and the burial grounds became proof of that devotion at industrial scale. Few animals have left such a concentrated trail of belief. Ancient Greek writers described cats as skilled hunters and companions. Greek authors loved to describe the living world, from horses and dogs to strange animals reported by travelers. When cats appear in their writing, the tone often centers on talent. A cat was admired for efficiency, patience, and the kind of intelligence that did not need commands. That matters because it shows a shift in how people valued animals. Not every creature had to be trained like a dog to earn respect. A cat could be appreciated for doing one job very well, and for sharing a home without surrendering its personality. Greek households and ports also connected to wider trade, which meant new animals and ideas moved through the region. A written mention might seem small, yet it is a rare window into daily life. It tells you someone noticed the cat's presence enough to record it. Across centuries, that written glance becomes a thread, tying ordinary companionship to classical literature. In Rome, cats gradually replaced weasels as preferred rodent hunters. Before cats became the obvious choice, some Roman households used other hunters, including weasel-like animals, to keep rodents down. That detail can surprise modern listeners. because it shows how practical the problem was and how flexible people could be in solving it. Over time, cats proved easier to live with, and their hunting style suited indoor spaces and storage areas. A cat could patrol without being handled, and it could settle into domestic routines without constant supervision. The transition was not a single decision made by an emperor. It was countless small choices made by families, shopkeepers, and warehouse managers who noticed what worked best. When a solution spreads through a city, it reshapes daily life. The presence of cats becomes normal, then expected, then almost invisible. That is how cultural change often happens. In Rome, the cat did not conquer with noise or force. It won through usefulness, night after night. Early Islamic societies valued cats for cleanliness and household harmony. In many early Islamic communities, daily life was shaped by strong customs around cleanliness and respect for the home. Cats fit naturally into that environment. They controlled pests, they kept food spaces safer, and they moved through households without the disruption that larger animals could bring. Over time, stories and traditions helped frame cats as welcome companions, and that welcome carried social meaning. It signaled the kind of home you wanted to keep: orderly, cared for, and hospitable. The affection was not only practical, it also shaped behavior. People made room for cats in courtyards, markets, and shared spaces, and that tolerance let cats thrive in dense cities. The result was a landscape where humans and cats learned to coexist with fewer barriers. When a culture builds everyday respect into its routines, animals respond. A cat that feels safe will settle, raise kittens, and remain near people. That is how a preference becomes a tradition, and how tradition becomes history. Some medieval Islamic hospitals kept cats to control pests and disease. A hospital in the medieval world faced a constant struggle. Patients needed clean spaces, food stores had to be protected, and pests could turn suffering into catastrophe. In some places, cats became part of the solution. They were not medicine, but they helped shape a safer environment by reducing rodents that could spread filth and contamination. Imagine the scene. A ward lit by lamps, staff moving quietly between beds, and a cat slipping along a corridor where grain and linens were stored. It is a practical image, yet it also feels strangely modern. Infection control is a cornerstone of healthcare today, and here is an early version of that mindset, using the tools available. This also shows that cats were trusted in serious institutions, not only in private homes. The presence of a cat in a hospital tells you something about reputation. It suggests cats were seen as helpful partners and that their work could be measured in comfort and survival. Norse graves sometimes include cats, hinting at valued companionship. Burial customs reveal what a society honors, because grave goods are chosen with care. In some Norse burials, the presence of a cat suggests a bond strong enough to carry into the afterlife. That is striking in a culture often remembered for ships, raiding, and hard weather. It reminds you that tenderness and practicality can sit side by side. A cat might represent protection for the journey beyond death, or it might represent a relationship that mattered in ordinary life. Either way, the choice to include a cat changes the tone of the story. It suggests a household where a cat was more than a tool. It was part of identity. Archaeology rarely gives us names, voices, or final conversations. It gives us traces. A cat in a grave is a trace of affection, and it asks you to imagine the person who made that decision. In that moment, the past feels close. You can almost feel the weight of a hand resting on fur, saying goodbye. Bastet's cult linked cats with protection, fertility, and domestic life. In ancient Egypt, religion was not sealed inside temples. It flowed into homes, markets, and family life. Bastet became one of the clearest examples of that, because her worship gathered around safety, motherhood, and the well-being of the household. When people honored her, they were often asking for protection that felt personal and close. Cats fit that world perfectly. They lived near children and food. They defended the home from pests, and they moved with a grace that could seem almost supernatural. Devotion to Bastet could bring people together in festivals that blended joy with reverence. That mix matters because it shows cats were tied to celebration as well as to fear of danger. A cat could be both ordinary and sacred, a daily presence with spiritual weight. Through Bastet, the household itself became a holy space, guarded by familiar eyes. In medieval Europe, cats gained reputations tied to magic and fear. People depended on them for rodent control, yet the way they moved through darkness fed suspicion. A cat's eyes catch light, its steps are nearly silent, and it can appear and vanish without warning. In a world lit by candles and shaped by sermons, that behavior was easy to frame as otherworldly. When illness, crop failure, or a sudden death struck, communities searched for causes they could name. Rumor filled the gaps that science could not. Cats became convenient symbols for hidden forces because they lived close to humans while still seeming untamed. This tension created a strange double life for cats. They were welcomed into barns and kitchens, then whispered about in the same breath. Medieval fear did not erase cats. It turned them into living characters in the drama of belief. Witch trial folklore sometimes targeted cats, especially black-coated ones. During periods of witch panic, suspicion often latched onto whatever felt mysterious, familiar, and hard to control. Cats fit that shape. They kept their own schedules, they slipped through crowded streets at night, and they formed bonds that looked private and exclusive. Folklore then layered meaning onto color. Black coats became linked with darkness, secrecy, and bad luck in some regions, even though the color itself is ordinary biology. Once that association took hold, a black cat could trigger fear before it ever moved. Stories spread about cats as companions to witches or as disguises for harmful spirits. Those stories created real danger for animals and for people who cared for them. It is chilling to imagine a household trying to stay unnoticed, while their cat drew attention simply by existing. Witch trial culture shows how quickly an animal can become a scapegoat, not for what it does, but for what people imagine. Periodic anti-cat campaigns may have worsened local rodent problems. When fear turns into action, the consequences can be painfully practical. In some communities, hostility toward cats led to fewer cats on the streets and in hoes. That shift could change the balance between predator and prey. Rodents reproduce quickly, and they thrive wherever grain and waste are plentiful. Remove a key hunter, and the surviving rodents have more freedom to spread, feed, and nest. That does not mean cats alone control disease, or that every outbreak can be explained by one cause. History is rarely that simple. Still, it is easy to see how a campaign against cats could backfire in ways people did not expect. A town might feel safer after driving cats away, then face more gnawed stores, more infestation, and more filth. It is a reminder that superstition can reshape ecosystems, and ecosystems push back. Sometimes the price of fear is paid in crumbs and scratches. Cats appear in medieval bestiaries with moral lessons and odd claims. Medieval bestiaries were not field guides. They were books where animals became lessons about human behavior, sin, and virtue. A cat might be described through a mix of observation, hearsay, and symbolism, with stories that feel strange to modern ears. What matters is that cats were included at all. They were common enough, and meaningful enough to earn space beside lions, unicorns, and other creatures that carried heavy metaphor. In some entries, a cat's hunting skill could be admired, yet the same text might warn readers about deception or darkness. That push and pull reveals how medieval minds blended the seen and the unseen. These books also traveled, copied by hand, and read aloud. That meant cat stories could spread far beyond the homes where cats actually lived. A written image can outlive reality. Bestiaries helped shape the cat's reputation for centuries, turning a kitchen hunter into a creature loaded with moral weight. Renaissance paintings often hid cats in domestic scenes as status symbols. As Renaissance artists became fascinated with everyday life, they began to fill rooms with telling details. A cat in a painting could signal a well-kept home, stored food worth protecting, and a household calm enough to allow an animal to lounge nearby. Sometimes the cat is tucked near a table leg or half concealed in shadow, like a private joke between the artist and the viewer. That choice can also hint at wealth. Keeping animals indoors takes resources, and it suggests a home that expects abundance rather than scarcity. A cat could even sharpen the realism of a scene, because its posture and alert gaze make the painted room feel lived in. Viewers then read meaning into the presence. Was the cat a sign of comfort, temptation, or watchfulness? The fascinating part is that an ordinary animal became a visual code. In a time that celebrated human achievement, artists still made space for the quiet authority of a cat. Early modern cities paid bounties for vermin, and cats aided quietly. As European cities grew denser, rats and mice became a civic problem, not just a private irritation. Some places responded with organized efforts, including rewards for killing vermin. These bounties reveal how serious the issue was, because public money does not move without pressure. While people trapped and hunted, cats worked the edges of the same struggle. They patrolled alleys, courtyards, warehouses, and markets, often without anyone recording their contribution. That invisibility is part of the story. Human institutions wrote down payments and rules. But the daily labor of cats was easy to overlook because it happened in the dark. Imagine a shopkeeper locking up at night, hearing scratching, then trusting that the resident cat will handle it before morning. This is urban history at ground level, made of crumbs, footsteps, and survival. Bounties show fear. Cats show persistence. Together, they reveal how cities fought for control over their own food supply. Dutch Golden Age homes often featured cats as household realism. Dutch Golden Age painters loved the textures of ordinary life: bread on a table, light on a tiled floor, a half-opened door. Cats fit that world perfectly. They were common in prosperous homes, and they brought a sense of motion into otherwise still scenes. A cat crouched near a plate suggests leftovers, plenty, and a household that expects tomorrow to come. Sometimes the cat's gaze pulls you toward a shadowed corner, as if the painting contains a second story you must search for. These works also celebrate discipline and order, and a cat adds tension. It is a creature that can be tidy one moment, then knock something over the next. That tiny risk makes the domestic world feel real. What is most fascinating is how art can preserve a relationship without a single word. When you see a cat painted with care, you are seeing a society that recognized cats as part of home life, not as a background accident. Japanese folktales turned cats into shape-shifting figures like the bakaneko. In Japanese storytelling, cats sometimes step beyond the ordinary and become bakaneko, beings that can change shape and influence human lives. These tales often begin with a familiar cat, then add a twist that turns comfort into suspense. A cat might grow older, gain strange abilities, or take on human form. The stories do not only aim to frighten, they explore themes of loyalty, revenge, gratitude, and the hidden life of the household. A creature that watches quietly from the corner becomes a perfect vessel for questions about what we cannot see. Folktales also reflect the social world around them. When people live close together, small mysteries feel larger. The cat becomes a doorway into that feeling. The fascination is in the ambiguity. Is the cat a monster, a moral judge, or simply a mirror for human fear? Through Bakeniko stories, cats become agents of wonder and warning signs in fur. The Maneki Niko charm rose as a symbol of good fortune in Japan. Walk into a shop in Japan, and you may see a small cat figure with one paw raised, inviting luck through the door. The Maneki Niko, often placed near entrances, became a cultural symbol tied to business, prosperity, and welcome. Its popularity grew through stories that linked the gesture to protection and unexpected fortune. The charm is simple, yet the idea behind it is powerful. It turns a familiar animal into a guardian of thresholds, the moment where strangers become customers and chance becomes livelihood. Different designs carry different hopes, and people choose them with intention. That practice says something tender about human psychology. We like to feel that luck can be encouraged and that the world is listening when we make a small ritual. The Maneki Niko also shows how cats moved from working partners to symbols with their own visual language. A raised paw can hold a whole economy of hope. Chinese art sometimes linked cats with longevity and household prosperity. In Chinese visual tradition, cats appear in scenes that celebrate the home, abundance, and the good life that lasts. A cat beside flowers, fruit, or playful children can carry layered meaning, because art often speaks through symbols rather than direct statements. The cat's presence suggests a household that is secure enough to enjoy beauty and protected enough to keep what it has. Prosperity is not only wealth. It is stability, food stored safely, and a life that continues through seasons. Cats also connect to the practical side of that hope, because a household free of pests is a household that can thrive. What makes this fascinating is how seamlessly the symbolic and the practical can blend. A cat can be painted as a charm for fortune, while still being the real animal that guarded the pantry. When art and daily life agree, a culture's values become visible. In these images, the cat is not a mystery or a threat. It is a sign that the home is meant to endure. Cats became popular in printing and cartoons as literacy spread. When cheap printing expanded, publishers needed characters that could speak without words. A cat was perfect. It was instantly recognizable, expressive, and already loaded with cultural meaning from hearthside stories and street life. As literacy grew, so did the appetite for pamphlets, satirical prints, and illustrated papers that could travel quickly from hand to hand. Artists used cats to poke fun at manners, vanity, and politics, because a cat could be sly without sounding cruel. A single raised tail or narrowed eye could deliver a punchline that crossed class lines. Cats also fit the new rhythm of modern life. They lived in crowded cities and in quiet homes, and they belonged to everyone. Printing turned cats into repeatable images, and repeatable images turned cats into shared references. That is how an ordinary animal became a kind of visual language, readable at a glance. Newspapers helped create famous cats with names, stories, and fans. Once newspapers became part of daily routine, they began filling their pages with small stories that felt close to home. A cat with a name was irresistible. It gave readers a break from politics and tragedy, and it offered a simple narrative people could follow over weeks. Editors learned that a cat who returned after being lost or a cat who ruled a shop could pull in letters and attention. Soon, readers were not only consuming the news, they were participating in it by sending sightings, anecdotes, and opinions. In that way, newspapers built early fan communities, long before social media. A local cat could become a shared mascot for a neighborhood, a workplace, or an entire city district. Fame did not require a stage. It required repetition, a voice on the page, and a public willing to care. Newspapers gave cats all three and turned private affection into public story. Naval records mentioned ship cats treated as unofficial crew members. A warship ran on discipline, yet even strict institutions made room for practical helpers. In some naval records and ship logs, cats appear as more than stowaways. They are noted, named, and sometimes treated as part of the ship's daily order. That detail matters because record-keeping is selective. If a cat is written down, it means someone thought it belonged in the story of the voyage. A ship was a closed world with limited supplies, and rats could destroy food or damage materials that kept the vessel working. A good hunter protected the ship's readiness in a way that sailors understood. Over time, routines formed around these animals. They were fed, tolerated, and sometimes even mourned. The cat became a small point of stability amid hard weather and hard rules. It is strangely moving to imagine an officer signing off on reports, while a cat somewhere below deck continued its quiet patrol. The Royal Navy kept cats aboard to protect rations from rats. On long voyages, rations were not comfort. They were the line between duty and starvation. Salt meat, hard biscuit, and stored grain had to last, and rats treated those stores as an open invitation. Traps helped, but a ship is full of hiding places, and rodents breed fast. Cats offered a solution that moved and adapted. They could hunt in cramped holds, slip behind barrels, and work through the night while sailors slept. That work protected food, but it also protected morale, because hunger makes discipline brittle. The Royal Navy's reliance on ship cats shows how warfare depends on unglamorous details. Cannons matter, but so does the pantry. A cat could not win a battle, yet it could keep a crew fed enough to fight. That is a different kind of power, and it is easy to miss in grand histories. The cat's victory was measured in intact sacks and quiet nights. Cats entered polar expeditions, where they guarded stores and boosted morale. Polar expeditions carried modern ambition into a world that wanted to kill you. Cold, split wood, darkness stretched for weeks, and every calorie mattered. In that setting, a cat could become both a worker and a comfort. Food stores still attracted pests in camps and ships, and a hunter could help protect precious supplies. Yet the emotional role may have been just as important. A cat's routine, its appetite, and its stubborn normality gave people something familiar when everything else was alien. In a place where isolation could bend the mind, small companionship mattered. A purr in a cramped cabin could make the world feel less empty. The presence of a cat also reveals confidence, because bringing an animal meant planning to care for it in extreme conditions. These expeditions are often remembered for flags and maps. It is worth remembering the quieter passengers, padding across the ice edge of human endurance. Some 19th century explorers wrote affectionate journals about their cats. Explorers often kept journals to record routes, weather, and encounters, but the most revealing lines can be the personal ones. In the 19th century, some travelers wrote about their cats with a warmth that cuts through the era's stiff public image. A cat appears as a companion in camp, a presence in a crowded cabin, or a small creature that insists on comfort in uncomfortable places. These notes matter because they show what exploration felt like day to day. A cat could turn a harsh journey into a shared life, with familiar habits that anchored the mind. The writing also reveals changing ideas about animals. The cat is not only a tool. It becomes someone to miss, someone to protect, and someone to talk to when loneliness presses in. History often records what people conquered. A journal line about a cat records what people needed, which was steadiness, affection, and a sense of home carried in fur. London's post office once employed cats to patrol mail depots. A major mail depot is a feast for pests. Sacks of paper, stored parcels, and food scraps from workers can attract rodents, and rodents can chew through anything. In London, the postal system became so essential that protecting it was a practical necessity, not a luxury. Cats were brought in as working residents, and their presence was treated as part of keeping the service running smoothly. Imagine the scene at night. Lamps glow, clerks have gone home, and the building settles into silence while cats take over the corridors. Their work protected more than property. It protected trust. A damaged letter could mean lost money, broken relationships, or missed news in a time when letters carried the weight of life events. The idea of cats guarding communication is wonderfully fitting because cats are masters of routes and territory. They know every corner. In a world held together by paper, a cat could become an unseen guardian of connection. Wartime cities used cats as morale symbols in posters and cartoons. During wartime, governments and artists fought on another front, which was morale. Posters and cartoons had to persuade people to endure rationing, fear, and loss. Cats became useful symbols because they were familiar, resilient, and easy to love. A cat could represent the home people wanted to protect, and it could deliver a message without sounding like an order. In cartoons, a cat might stand in for a nation's stubbornness, or for the everyday citizen who refuses to be frightened. These images mattered because they entered kitchens, shelters, and workplaces where people needed reminders that life still had warmth. A cat in an illustration could also soften the edge of propaganda, making a message feel personal rather than mechanical. The fascinating part is that cats did not only live through war. They were recruited into the emotional language of war. They helped shape how people imagined courage, patience, and survival, one drawing at a time. Cats reached the Americas with European ships, then spread rapidly inland. When European ships crossed the Atlantic, they carried more than people, tools, and seeds. They also carried the everyday problem of rats and the everyday solution of cats. On a wooden ship, vermin could destroy food stores and gnaw ropes and sails, so a good hunter was worth its weight in provisions. Once those ships reached coastal settlements, cats stepped into a new world of barns, warehouses, and busy docks that offered endless prey. From there, they followed human movement inland, riding wagons, drifting along rivers, and settling wherever grain was stored. You can almost trace expansion by imagining new towns forming, each one building a pantry and then needing a guardian. This is how cats became woven into colonial life so quickly. They were not imported for beauty first. They were imported for survival, and then they stayed for everything else. Colonial records describe cats as valuable property with assigned prices. In colonial households, a cat was not always treated as a casual pet. In many places, cats appear in written records as property with a stated value, listed alongside tools, livestock, and household goods. That detail changes the mood of the story. It means cats could be counted, argued over, inherited, and sold. It also suggests demand. A working hunter protected grain and kept homes livable, so a reliable cat had real economic weight. Probate inventories and household accounts captured this in ink, giving us rare proof of how ordinary people measured worth. A named cat might not survive in history, yet the Priceline does. It tells you a family saw the animal as part of their security, not a decorative luxury. When you read that kind of record, you are hearing the hard logic of frontier life. Affection mattered, but usefulness could be written into law and money. Early American farms relied on cats to protect grain and poultry feed. A farm runs on stored food. Corn in a bin, oats in a sack, feed tucked away for winter. All of it is vulnerable to a small army of teeth. Early American farms often depended on cats to keep that stored wealth from disappearing one bite at a time. A barn cat could patrol lofts, stalls, and sheds where traps failed and humans could not watch all night. The work had a direct effect on survival. Lost grain meant less bread and less seed for the next planting. Spoiled feed weakened animals that families depended on for labor, milk, and eggs. Cats fit the farm rhythm because they required little training, and they hunted when people slept. They also shaped the soundscape of rural life, with sudden thuds in the hay and a quiet victory carried in a mouth. Farm history often focuses on plows and fences, yet a cat could be the difference between plenty and shortage. In Australia, cats arrived with settlers and quickly became widespread. When British settlers and convicts arrived in Australia, they brought familiar animals for practical reasons. Cats were among the most useful because ships and early settlements attracted rodents, and food supplies were too precious to risk. As towns formed, cats multiplied and spread, moving between docks, farms, and inland stations with the flow of people and goods. In a new landscape, they adapted fast. They learned the rhythms of heat, drought, and unfamiliar prey, and they found shelter around human habitation that offered warmth and scraps. This spread happened quietly, without any grand decision, and that is part of what makes it so striking. A choice made on a ship, bring a cat to protect stores, could ripple across a continent. The story also carries tension, because the very traits that made cats valuable companions also made them excellent survivors. Australia's cat history begins with necessity, then grows into something far larger than anyone intended. Cats later became invasive predators in many island ecosystems. On islands, wildlife often evolves without certain predators. Birds may nest on the ground, small mammals may lack fear, and ecosystems can be exquisitely balanced. When cats arrive, that balance can shift quickly. A skilled hunter that once protected stored grain can turn to native species that have no practiced defenses. Over time, this has contributed to population declines and extinctions in some island environments, especially where habitats are small and isolated. That makes cats one of history's most complicated travelers. The same animal can be a beloved companion in a home and a serious ecological threat outside it. Modern conservation efforts sometimes focus on protecting vulnerable species through careful management, which can include containment, removal, or strict pet policies. These debates are emotionally difficult because they involve both love and loss. Island history shows how human choices move animals across borders and how those movements can rewrite the fate of places that seem far from human drama. A cat's paw print can be gentle indoors and devastating in the wrong ecosystem. Some cultures saw cats as omens, while others saw them as protectors. Cats have always been easy to read into because they sit between wildness and home. In some European traditions, a cat crossing your path could be treated as a sign, and the meaning could swing from luck to warning depending on place and time. In other cultures, cats were welcomed as household guardians, believed to keep misfortune away simply by being present and alert. These beliefs shaped behavior in everyday life. People fed certain cats, avoided others, and told stories that turned a real animal into a moving symbol. What is fascinating is how the same creature can carry opposite meanings without changing at all. The difference lives in human imagination, passed down through families and neighborhoods. When you follow the history of cats, you are also following the history of interpretation. A cat's glance can be taken as judgment, blessing, or nothing at all. That flexibility helped cats slip into myths as easily as they slipped into kitchens. Cat keeping became a middle-class marker as urban living expanded. As cities industrialized, more people lived in smaller homes, with schedules shaped by factory hours and public transport. In that setting, pet keeping became a sign of stability. To keep a cat indoors, you needed steady food, a clean space, and enough control over your home to allow an animal to belong there. For a growing middle class, that mattered. It signaled respectability, domestic order, and the kind of comfort that went beyond survival. Cats also suited urban life. They did not need a yard, and they could fit into apartments and row houses where dogs were harder to manage. Over time, the cat shifted in public perception from a street hunter to a household companion that represented a certain lifestyle. This was not only about sentiment, it was about identity. A family that chose to keep a cat was making a quiet statement about home, routine, and belonging in a rapidly changing world. The cat became part of the furniture of modernity, warm and watchful. Victorian homes embraced cats as fashionable indoor companions. Victorian Britain loved rules, collections, and displays of taste, and the home was a stage for all three. In that world, cats moved from being tolerated workers to being presented as companions worthy of attention. People wrote about them, posed them in photographs, and treated them as part of the household's character. A cat on a cushion suggested comfort and refinement, and it hinted that the home was well run enough to accommodate a creature with its own will. This period also expanded the idea of sentimental attachment to pets. A cat could be mourned, celebrated, and described with personality rather than with function. The change was subtle but powerful. It meant cats were no longer valued only for what they caught. They were valued for what they were. Victorian culture helped build the modern image of the cat as a creature of indoor life, with quirks that people found charming rather than inconvenient. The fashionable cat was not just an animal. It was a statement that domestic life could include affection, leisure, and a little mischief. Cat shows began in the 19th century and reshaped breeding goals. Once cat shows appeared, cats entered a new kind of spotlight. Instead of being judged by the quiet evidence of empty mouse nests, they were judged by appearance, posture, and the features people found beautiful. A show ring turns living traits into standards. Fur length, color, head shape, and temperament become categories, then become goals. That shift changed how people bred cats, because prizes and prestige reward predictability. It also changed how the public talked about cats. Ordinary owners started noticing details they might never have named before, and new labels spread through newspapers and conversations. The show world created celebrity cats, and it created a sense that cats could be improved through careful selection, for better or for worse. This is a major turning point in history because it marks a move from usefulness to display. It also reflects a society with enough leisure to celebrate an animal simply for its form. When cats became competitors, they also became curated, and that idea still shapes pet culture today. The modern pedigree cat movement grew from early exhibition standards. Exhibitions did more than hand out ribbons. They created paperwork. Once shows established what counted as a desirable cat, clubs and organizers began building registries to record lineage and define categories. Over time, pedigree became a promise, not only of appearance, but of ancestry that could be traced. That promise changed how people acquired cats. Instead of adopting whatever hunter appeared at the doorstep, some buyers sought documented lines and specific looks. Breeders responded by tracking matings, selecting traits, and marketing kittens with a new kind of authority. This movement also drew boundaries because it separated cats into recognized breeds and everyone else. The result was a parallel world of cats, one shaped by streets and farms, and one shaped by papers and standards. It is a fascinating example of how humans create order around nature. A cat does not care about a registry, yet the registry changed human desire, and desire changed the cat's future. Modern pedigree culture is not just about animals. It is about classification, status, and the power of a written record. The first major cat show was held in London in the 19th century. It happened in a world that was already obsessed with exhibitions, trophies, and public taste. At London's Crystal Palace, visitors could stroll past rows of cats the way they might admire rare flowers or fancy pigeons. This was a turning point because it pulled cats out of private homes and into public judgment. Suddenly, a cat could be praised for symmetry, coat, and composure instead of only for catching mice. Owners compared notes, swapped stories, and began thinking in categories. Crowds learned to look closely at details they had never named before, from ear shape to fur texture. The show also created something modern, which was the idea of the cat as a curated companion. A domestic animal became a spectacle, and spectators became a market. One event helped turn everyday affection into an organized culture. Cat fancy clubs created registries that defined breeds and lineages. Once people began competing, they needed rules that felt fair and consistent. Clubs formed to write standards, keep records, and decide what counted as a particular type of cat. A registry sounds dry, yet it transformed how cats were seen. It turned family stories into documented ancestry, and it made identity something you could prove on paper. That paperwork encouraged long-term planning because breeders could track traits across generations and build reputations over time. It also created new social worlds, with meetings, judging panels, and debates about what the ideal cat should look like. A home companion became part of the network of names, titles, and lineage charts. This shift mattered beyond the show hall. It influenced how people bought cats, how they valued kittens, and how they imagined purity and prestige. The history of registries is really a history of humans trying to organize nature, one pedigree at a time. Selective breeding produced dramatic coats, faces, and body shapes. When people chose mates based on appearance, small differences began to stack up. Over decades, coats became longer, shorter, curlier, or patterned in striking new ways. Faces shifted too, as certain profiles were praised and repeated. Bodies followed, with some lines favoring sturdy frames and others favoring a more delicate build. The fascinating part is how quickly intention can sculpt a living animal. A preference expressed in a show ring can become a widespread look in a generation. Yet this story is not only about beauty, it is also about trade-offs. When you narrow a gene pool to chase a specific feature, you can also amplify hidden problems. Selective breeding is a powerful tool, and it carries responsibility. It reveals what humans desire, and it leaves that desire written on whiskers, bone, and fur. A cat's silhouette can be a historical document. Some modern breeds began from spontaneous mutations, then were preserved. Every so often, a kitten is born with an unexpected trait, a coat that curls differently, ears that fold, or fur that barely appears at all. In most eras, that difference would vanish in a few generations. Modern breeding culture changed that because people began to treat rare traits as something to protect and repeat. A single surprising birth could become the foundation of an entire breed if humans decided it was special. This is evolution on a human timescale, driven by attention rather than survival. It also shows how chance and choice dance together. The mutation is random, but the future of the trait is not. People name it, celebrate it, and build a lineage around it. That can create wonder, and it can create risk, depending on health and diversity. Either way, the origin story often begins with one unexpected kitten in one ordinary home, and ends with a worldwide community. The Siamese became a Western sensation through royal and diplomatic stories. Western fascination grew partly because these cats arrived wrapped in narrative, not just in fur. They were linked in popular retellings to Siam, now Thailand, and to elite settings that felt exotic to European and American audiences. Visitors and diplomats carried tales of palace life, treasured animals, and gifts that crossed borders with ceremony. Those stories acted like fuel because they made the cat seem like more than a pet. It became a living souvenir of international contact. The look also helped, with striking contrast and a voice that many people found unforgettable. When a cat arrives with a legend attached, people listen before they even see it. That is how a breed can spread quickly through fashionable circles. The Siamese story shows that animals can travel on the currents of politics and prestige. Sometimes a reputation reaches a place first, and the cat follows behind it. Persian cats became luxury icons through Victorian portraiture and trade. Long-coated cats had existed in different regions for centuries, but the Persian became a symbol of refinement when Victorian society began collecting and displaying beauty at home. Traders and travelers helped move these cats into new markets, and wealthy owners treated them like living ornaments. Portraits and staged photographs made the message clear. This was softness, elegance, and leisure turned into fur. A Persian in a parlor suggested that the household had time, money, and space to care for something that was not strictly necessary. That status effect spread, and soon the look itself became desirable. As demand rose, breeding focused on coat and face, and the breed's public image tightened into a recognizable icon. It is a reminder that luxury is often a story we tell with objects, and sometimes with animals. The Persian became a visual shorthand for comfort, and comfort became a kind of power. Maine Coon legends mixed folklore with the practical life of ship cats. This breed carries stories that are larger than life, tales of wild origins and dramatic journeys that people repeat because they are fun to believe. Yet behind the folklore sits a more grounded reality, which is that working cats traveled with people who needed hunters. Coastal trade and ship life created constant opportunities for cats to move, breed, and adapt. In colder regions, sturdier bodies and thicker coats would have been an advantage, and over time, a recognizable type could emerge. The legends persist because they give romance to a practical history. They turn the barn and the dock into a stage, and they make an everyday working animal feel heroic. That blend of myth and function is part of what makes the Maine Coon so captivating. It reminds you that communities build identity from what they have and what they wish were true. A cat can be both a local worker and a local legend at the same time. The Turkish Angora was prized in Europe for its long silk coat. When European travelers encountered elegant long-haired cats associated with Turkey, the coat often stole the show. It moved like fabric and caught light in a way that made the animal look almost sculpted. In European courts and salons, rarity mattered, and a cat that looked unlike the usual barn hunter could become a status symbol. These cats were discussed, gifted, and displayed, which helped spread their reputation across borders. The fascination was not only aesthetic. A long-haired cat suggested distant places, trade connections, and a world opening wider through travel. That meant the animal carried a kind of geographical glamour. Once a look becomes fashionable, it creates demand, and demand shapes breeding and ownership patterns. The Turkish Angora story shows how quickly beauty can become currency. A coat can change a cat's social role, turning it into a conversation piece as well as a companion. The Manx breed is tied to island history and unusual tail genetics. On the Isle of Man, isolation helped shape a distinctive local cat, and the most famous feature was the tail, or the lack of one. The trait is rooted in genetics, and it can appear in different degrees, from a shortened tail to none at all. Island communities tend to notice what makes them unique, and this cat became part of local identity, surrounded by stories that tried to explain the look. Sailors and visitors then carried the idea outward, so a regional curiosity became internationally recognizable. What makes the Manx especially interesting is that the trait is not just cosmetic. Breeding decisions have to consider health outcomes, because certain pairings can increase risk. That adds complexity to the romantic island narrative. The Manx shows how geography, chance, and human preference can combine to create something memorable. An island can act like a small laboratory, and the result can end up in homes around the world. The Sphinx breed emerged from a natural hairless mutation in the 20th century. Hairlessness can look futuristic, yet its origin was simple chance. A kitten was born without the usual coat, and people decided the difference was worth preserving. From there, careful breeding aimed to create a stable line, while also building a community that understood this cat's special needs. Without fur, warmth becomes a daily concern, and skincare becomes part of routine life. That changes the relationship between owner and cat, because care is more hands-on and more constant. The Sphinx also challenges assumptions about what a cat should be. It shows personality without the familiar visual cues of fluff and pattern, so people pay more attention to expression, movement, and voice. In cultural terms, the breed fits the modern appetite for the unusual, the rare, and the conversation-starting companion. The Sphinx is proof that a single genetic surprise can reshape taste. It also reminds us that beauty can be redefined within a generation. Domestic cats are descended from Near Eastern wildcats, not European ones. That ancestry matters because it anchors the cat story in a specific landscape. The Near Eastern wildcat is a small, adaptable hunter that thrives in scrub, fields, and rocky edges. It is the sort of animal that can live near people without needing deep forest cover. When researchers compare modern cat DNA with wild populations, the strongest genetic match points back to that region's wildcats, rather than to European wildcat lines. This helps explain why cats spread so well with early farming cultures. The original wild ancestors were already suited to open habitat shaped by humans. It also reframes a familiar pet as a migrant with a clear homeland. The cat on your sofa carries echoes of sun-baked hills and grain fields, not the deep woods of northern Europe. A domestic cat is not a softened version of every wildcat. It is a descendant of one particular survivor. Genetic studies show domestication happened with ongoing mixing, not one moment. Many domestication stories sound like a single dramatic event, as if humans captured an animal and changed it forever in one generation. Cats are different. Genetic evidence suggests a long, messy relationship where domestic and wild cats continued to interbreed while living around the same settlements. That means domestication was not a clean doorway that a cat stepped through once. It was more like a tide that moved in and out over centuries. Some cats lived close to people, then their kittens drifted outward. Wild cats wandered in, then stayed for the hunting. This constant mixing kept cats physically capable and behaviorally flexible, which may be why they remain so independent compared with many other domestic animals. It also means the cat's history is not a straight line. It is a braided rope made from countless small encounters, each one nudging the relationship forward. Domestication, for cats, was a slow negotiation. Cats likely self-domesticated by hunting rodents near human settlements. Imagine a village at night, with food stored behind walls and mice exploring every crack. For a wild hunter, that is an easy buffet. The cats that dared to approach would eat well, and the cats that could tolerate human noise would stay longer. People benefited too, often without planning it, because fewer rodents meant fewer ruined stores and less stress in the home. Over time, the boldest and calmest cats would raise kittens closer to humans, and those kittens would learn that people were not always a threat. This is why cat domestication can feel like a partnership of convenience, rather than a project of control. Cats were not shaped to pull carts or guard herds. They were shaped by opportunity. They chose the edge of human life because it offered food and shelter. Humans then grew used to their presence and eventually began to welcome it. A cat may have domesticated itself by simply showing up and succeeding. Ancient DNA helps trace cat movement with trade and conquest. Bones and teeth can carry a hidden passport. When scientists extract ancient DNA from cat remains, they can compare genetic signatures across time and place. That can reveal when a particular lineage appears in a new region, which can hint at ships, caravans, or military expansion that carried cats along. It turns scattered archaeological finds into a map of movement. A cat buried near a port might share ancestry with cats from far away, suggesting a route that written records never mention. This is especially exciting for periods where everyday animals were rarely documented. Kings left inscriptions, but cats left bones. Ancient DNA lets those bones speak. It can also show how quickly cats blended with local populations once they arrived, creating new mixtures that matched new environments. In that sense, cats become a tool for understanding human connectivity. If a cat lineage traveled, it often means people and goods traveled too. The cat becomes a quiet witness to trade networks and empire. Cat coat patterns record human preference, and they changed over time. A coat is not just decoration. It is a record of what humans noticed, tolerated, and selected. Early domestic cats likely looked much like their wild ancestors, with coats shaped for camouflage rather than show. Over centuries, new patterns appeared and spread, and their rise can reflect shifting human attitudes. When cats were valued mainly as hunters, unusual colors may have mattered less than skill. When cats became household companions, appearance could suddenly become part of the appeal. Coat genetics can preserve that transition. Certain markings become common when people allow them to breed, and rare when people discourage them. This is history written in fur, because a preference repeated across generations becomes a population-level change. It is also a reminder that human taste has consequences. A small choice, which kitten is kept and which is not, can echo outward into the future. The variety of coats you see today is partly the result of countless quiet decisions made in homes and marketplaces. The tabby pattern became common as cats adapted to city living. The tabby pattern is more than a charming look. It is a practical design that breaks up the outline of a cat in cluttered environments. In towns and cities, cats moved through courtyards, woodpiles, alleys, and storerooms where stripes and swirls could offer subtle camouflage. That could help in hunting, because rodents notice movement before they notice shape. As cats lived closer to humans in dense settlements, certain traits could become more common simply because those cats survived and reproduced. The tabby also fits the story of the streetwise cat, agile and opportunistic, thriving in human-built landscapes. Over time, the pattern became familiar enough to feel like the default cat, the one people picture when they hear the word. That familiarity can hide its historical depth. A tabby coat is a reminder that city life shaped cats as much as cats shaped city life. The pattern carries an echo of alleys and granaries, and of generations hunting in the shadow of human walls. The word cat spread widely, with related roots across many languages. Words travel the way goods do. When people trade, migrate, and conquer, they also swap names for everyday things. The word for cat is a fascinating example because many languages use terms that sound strikingly related. That suggests the concept and the animal moved along routes where people kept hearing the same creature called by a similar name. It is like linguistic paw prints across continents. This matters because cats were not just exotic curiosities. They were common enough to need a stable word, and valued enough for the word to stick. Language also shows familiarity. When a borrowed word replaces an older one, it can mean the animal itself became more present in daily life than before. You can almost hear the shift in markets and households. A new word arrives with a new kind of companion, and it settles in. The spread of cat words hints at shared histories, long-distance contact, and the quiet power of a useful animal to reshape speech. Some ship logs listed cats as cargo, alongside tools and food. A ship's log is a world reduced to essentials. If something is listed, it mattered to the voyage. When cats appear in those records, it suggests they were treated as part of the ship's working equipment. A cat protected supplies, but it also protected the ship itself, because rats can damage rigging, wood, and stored materials. By recording a cat-like cargo, sailors were admitting something simple. This living animal had a job that affected survival. It also changes how you picture maritime history. Ships were not only crews and cannons. They were ecosystems with predators and prey, and the cat was introduced as a form of control. There is also a poignant side. A cat listed on a manifest had to be fed, watered, and kept safe in storms. Someone took responsibility, even if the paperwork sounded cold. The log line makes the cat real. It was there, crossing oceans, not as a mascot, but as an asset that could earn its place on board. Cats helped protect stored spices, textiles, and grain in global trade. Trade goods were vulnerable long before they reached a market stall. Spices could be spoiled by moisture and pests. Grain could be devoured. Textiles could be chewed, stained, or ruined in storage. Warehouses and ship holds were magnets for rodents, and rodents can destroy value quickly. Cats became a moving security system for these goods. A single cat in a storeroom could shift the behavior of pests because the smell of a predator changes where rodents dare to go. That deterrent effect mattered as much as the hunting. In that way, cats helped protect wealth that people could not easily replace. Their work supported merchants, sailors, and families whose livelihoods depended on intact cargo. It is easy to think of global trade as maps and money. It was also barrels, sacks, and silent nights in a storehouse where a cat waited. The success of a voyage could hinge on small teeth and on a smaller hunter watching for them. Laws about animal keeping shaped how cats lived in crowded cities. As cities grew denser, animals became a public issue. Noise, waste, and disease fears led to rules about what could be kept, where it could be kept, and who was responsible when things went wrong. Cats were affected by these changes even when laws did not mention them directly. A rule about trash, food storage, or building conditions can alter how many rodents a city supports, and that changes a cat's daily world. Regulations about strays, licensing, or animal control can also shift whether cats live as free roamers or as indoor companions. In crowded neighborhoods, even small disputes can become political. One person's helpful mouser can become another person's nuisance. Over time, legal pressure helped push cats toward a more domestic role in some places, while other areas maintained street colonies supported by local custom. City law is often written to manage humans, yet it ends up managing animal life too. A cat's territory can be shaped by a courthouse as much as by an alley. Medieval households sometimes assigned cats specific duties in barns and kitchens. In many medieval homes, a cat was not only tolerated, it was expected to work. Barns stored grain, hay, and seed, and each pile was an invitation to mice. Kitchens held bread, cheese, and dried foods that could vanish overnight if rodents gained confidence. So families watched which cats hunted well, and they quietly shaped the cat's role through access and habit. A skilled mouser was allowed into pantries and lofts. A less reliable cat might be kept nearer to the hearth where it could still deter pests by scent alone. Some households treated the best hunters almost like small guardians, feeding them enough to keep them healthy without dulling their edge. It was not a formal job title, yet it was a real expectation. In a world where one spoiled store could mean hunger, a cat's nightly patrol mattered. Cats appear in monastery margins, drawn by scribes for humor. A scribe could spend hours copying lines with aching hands, and the page could feel like a long hallway with no doors. Then, in the margins, something playful appears. A small cat, sometimes alert, sometimes mischievous, sometimes chasing a mouse that threatens the very book being made. These drawings are wonderful because they are not official history. They are human moments that slipped through the rules. Monasteries valued discipline, yet scribes still noticed the animals around them, and they chose to preserve that noticing in ink. A marginal cat might be a private joke, a complaint about distraction, or a quiet tribute to a familiar presence in the workspace. It also tells you that cats were close enough to the writing life to become part of its visual language. The margins were a place where the mind could breathe, and cats padded right into that space. A famous medieval poem mourns a cat and praises its hunting skill. One of the most touching medieval cat moments is a short poem written by a monk who compares his own study to his cat's daily work. The cat is named Panga Bon, and the tone is affectionate, focused, and surprisingly modern. The writer does not treat the animal as a symbol. He treats it as a companion with a craft. The monk hunts for meaning in books, and the cat hunts for mice, and each takes joy in doing the task well. That parallel turns an ordinary scene into something timeless. It also shows that closeness to animals did not always come with superstition or suspicion. Sometimes it came with respect. The poem survives because scribes copied it, which means others found it worth keeping. Across centuries, it still feels like a whispered moment in a quiet room, shared between a person and a cat. In early modern Europe, cats became common in still life symbolism. Still life paintings often look calm, yet they can be full of tension. A table holds fruit, bread, fish, and bright metal, all of it balanced between abundance and decay. Add a cat, and the scene gains a pulse. The animal can suggest appetite and temptation because it watches the food with intent. It can suggest domestic order because only a stable home can afford such a spread. It can also hint at time passing because cats arrive when humans look away and loss happens in the pause. Artists used these cues with care. A cat at the edge of the frame makes you feel like something could change at any moment. That is the trick of still life. It looks frozen, but it warns you that nothing stays. The cat becomes the living reminder that the feast is vulnerable, and so is the life around it. Cats entered children's stories as morals shifted toward kindness and empathy. As ideas about childhood changed, stories began to focus less on harsh warning and more on character, choice, and feeling. Cats were ready-made for that shift. They could be clever without being cruel, proud without being evil, and independent without being lonely. A cat character could teach children about patience, responsibility, and the consequences of small actions, because cats respond to how they are treated. Folk tales and later printed stories used cats as companions, tricksters, helpers, and sometimes as mirrors of human behavior. The most famous example in many European traditions is the cat, who uses wit to change its master's fate, turning poverty into possibility through sheer strategy. What makes these stories powerful is how they invite a child to understand another creature's perspective. A cat is not a puppet. It is a personality. As moral storytelling leaned toward empathy, cats became perfect teachers. Urban sanitation reforms reduced pests, yet cats remained beloved companions. When cities began building sewers, improving waste collection, and regulating food storage, they changed the conditions that had supported endless rodents. Better sanitation meant fewer hiding places and fewer steady meals for rats and mice. In theory, that should have reduced the need for cats as workers. In practice, cats stayed, and their role shifted. They became household companions more than background labor, and their value moved from pure utility to daily presence. This transition is a quiet marker of modern life. It suggests that people could now keep a cat for affection, not only for protection. It also shows how a relationship can outlive the problem that first created it. Even as pest pressure dropped in many areas, cats remained woven into routines, sleeping on chairs, watching windows, and claiming corners of the home as if they had always owned them. Sanitation changed the city's smell and sound. It did not break the bond. Early photography made cats into household celebrities for the first time. Before photography, most people never owned an image of their own home life. Then cameras arrived, and suddenly a cat could be captured in the middle of ordinary existence, perched on a sofa, peering from a doorway, or sitting with a child who could not hold still. Early photography had limits, and exposure times could be long, so a calm cat could become an ideal subject. Studios also used animals as props, because a cat added charm and humor to a portrait without saying a word. Once families could share and keep these images, cats gained a new kind of permanence. A cat that would have been remembered only in stories now had a face that could be passed down. This changed how people talked about pets. It encouraged names, personalities, and narratives because the photograph gave a cat public proof. The camera did not invent cat affection, but it amplified it, and it made it visible. Postcards and adverts turned cats into global icons of domestic life. When postcards became cheap and widely mailed, they created a new kind of everyday art. Cats appeared everywhere, drawn with humor, dressed in tiny outfits, or posed as mischievous little companions who seemed to understand human habits. Advertising quickly followed, because cats could sell comfort. A cat in a picture suggested cleanliness, warmth, and home, and it made products feel friendly rather than industrial. These images traveled across borders in sacks of mail, reaching people who might never meet, yet who could laugh at the same cat expression. That spread mattered culturally. It turned cats into shared reference points, a kind of global shorthand for domestic life. It also softened the edges of modernity. As cities grew louder and work became more mechanized, a postcard cat offered a small return to the familiar. The cat became a mascot for home itself, and the world agreed on the symbol. The rise of pet medicine changed cat survival and longevity dramatically. For most of history, a sick cat was treated with whatever a household could improvise, and many illnesses remained mysterious and fatal. Modern veterinary medicine changed that by building knowledge, tools, and routine care around cats as patients worth saving. Clinics made it easier to diagnose problems early, and safer anesthesia made surgery more possible. Better parasite control reduced suffering that once seemed inevitable. Nutrition advice also shifted outcomes, because feeding became more reliable and more tailored to feline needs. As treatment improved, owners began expecting long lives, not short ones. That expectation changed behavior. People brought cats in for checkups, watched symptoms more closely, and invested emotionally in prevention. The result was a cultural shift as well as a medical one. A cat was no longer a replaceable worker in the background. It became a family member whose health had a plan, a calendar, and professional care. Medicine helped turn companionship into a long story. Vaccination campaigns reshaped public health for cats and people alike. Vaccines did something remarkable. They turned certain terrifying diseases from common threats into preventable risks. For cats, widespread vaccination reduced outbreaks that could sweep through homes, shelters, and neighborhoods, especially among kittens. For humans, rabies prevention became one of the most important links, because rabies is fatal once symptoms appear, and controlling it in animals protects entire communities. Campaigns worked best when they became routine. A yearly reminder, a clinic visit, a record kept in a drawer, and a simple act that quietly changed the future. This is public health at its most personal. It happens in someone's arms, in the decision to protect an animal that cannot understand the danger. Vaccination also reshaped how societies managed stray populations and shelters, because prevention reduced panic and made long-term care more feasible. The history here is not only scientific, it is about trust in medicine and shared responsibility. A vaccinated cat is a small act that echoes outward. Rabies control laws influenced cat ownership rules in many countries. When rabies terrified communities, governments reached for laws that could reduce risk fast. Rules about vaccination, licensing, confinement, and stray management often followed, and cats were drawn into that legal net even when they were not the public's main focus. A cat that wandered freely could suddenly become a civic concern, not just a neighbor's pet. That changed how people behaved. Some owners began keeping cats indoors more often. Others were required to prove vaccination or face penalties. Shelters and city workers had to balance public safety with humane treatment, which was not always easy in times of fear. These laws also reveal something about trust. When disease threatens, society redraws the border between private choice and public responsibility. A simple household animal becomes part of health policy. The story is not only about medicine. It is about how fear reshapes daily life and how a rulebook can change where a cat is allowed to exist. Modern shelters began as humane movements responding to city animal neglect. As cities swelled, animals were everywhere, and many were unwanted, injured, or abandoned. Streets that were crowded with people could also be crowded with suffering, and that discomfort sparked organized compassion. Early shelter movements grew from the belief that cruelty should not be normal, even when life was hard. Volunteers and reformers pushed for places where animals could be fed, treated, and removed from danger. These efforts also forced uncomfortable questions into public view. What does a city owe the animals that live within it? Who pays, who decides, and what counts as a humane outcome? Shelters became more than buildings. They became symbols of a changing moral standard. The idea that a stray cat deserved care, not indifference, was a cultural shift with real weight. It moved animal welfare from private sentiment into civic action. A shelter door, opening and closing each day, marked a city learning to measure progress by mercy. Trap-neuter return programs grew from community efforts to reduce suffering. Free roaming cat colonies can grow quickly, and the result is often hardship, hunger, fighting, and sick kittens that never get a chance. Communities began experimenting with a different approach, one built on prevention rather than endless crisis. Trap-neuter return programs aim to stabilize colonies by stopping future litters while allowing the cats to remain in the territory they already know. That territory matters because removing cats can create a vacuum that draws new, unsterilized cats into the same food sources. These programs often rely on ordinary people, neighbors who learn schedules, recognize individuals, and show up with carriers at dawn. It becomes a kind of street-level stewardship. The work can be exhausting, yet it is also hopeful. Instead of treating colony cats as disposable, it treats them as lives worth managing humanely. In that sense, trap-neuter return is not only a technique, it is a public declaration that suffering is not acceptable background noise. Microchipping transformed lost cat recovery compared with older collar tags. For a long time, a lost cat's fate depended on luck. A collar tag could fall off. A handwritten address could fade. Even a careful owner might never learn what happened. Microchipping changed that equation by giving identification a better chance of surviving the real world. A chip is carried under the skin, so it cannot be dropped on a hedge or snapped in a fight. When a found cat reaches a clinic or shelter with a scanner, a number can connect to a record, and a record can connect to a person. That sounds simple, yet it reshaped the emotional math of pet ownership. People began believing reunion was possible, even after weeks or months. It also changed shelter operations, because return to owner became more achievable and more common when chips were widespread and registered. Microchipping did not end loss, but it narrowed the distance between disappearance and homecoming. A tiny implant became a bridge between two frightened worlds, the cat outdoors and the person searching. The internet era created new cat fame through memes and viral videos. In earlier centuries, a famous cat needed a newspaper editor or a postcard printer. Online, a cat can become known worldwide in a single day, powered by sharing rather than gatekeepers. The reasons are almost perfectly feline. Cats are expressive, unpredictable, and small enough for a camera to catch every detail, from a slow blink to an accidental tumble. Memes turned those moments into a shared language, and viral videos turned them into tiny stories people replay for comfort. This fame also changed how people see cats as cultural figures. A cat could become an ambassador for adoption, a symbol of resilience, or a comedic icon that crosses languages without translation. Yet internet fame can also be fragile, because it depends on attention that moves quickly. What remains is the deeper shift. The internet made the cat a global neighbor. You might never meet the cat on your screen, yet you can feel as if you know it. That is a new kind of closeness, built from pixels and emotion. Famous cats helped raise money for charities and disaster relief. Once a cat gains public attention, that attention can be redirected toward real needs. Some famous cats have become fundraising magnets, inspiring donations for shelters, medical care, and emergency response after disasters. This works because the cat provides a story people can hold on to, and giving becomes a way to participate in that story. A playful photo can turn into a campaign link. A catchphrase can turn into a benefit event. The cat becomes a friendly face for causes that might otherwise feel overwhelming. There is also a powerful emotional logic at play. Many people feel helpless when they hear about tragedy, but helping an animal-focused effort can feel concrete and immediate. In that sense, cat fame can become a tool for action, not only entertainment. It is also a reminder that empathy spreads socially. When one well-known cat draws people into caring, that caring often reaches far beyond the original star. A single animal can mobilize thousands of strangers into generosity, and that is a remarkable modern phenomenon. Some museums host resident cats, continuing traditions of pest control. Museums protect objects that cannot be replaced, textiles, papers, and artifacts that pests would gladly destroy. Long before modern climate systems and sealed cases, institutions relied on practical solutions, and caps were among the most effective. In some places, that tradition never fully disappeared. A resident cat can still be a working presence, patrolling storerooms and quiet corridors where rodents might try their luck. Visitors often fall in love with these cats, which creates an unexpected bridge between the public and the institution. The cat becomes a living symbol of care, a reminder that preservation is not only about glass and labels. It is also about vigilance, day after day. There is a charming contrast here. Museums are built to hold the past still, while a cat is a creature of motion and curiosity. Yet the two can fit together beautifully. A cat is a guardian that does not need a uniform. It simply needs a place to belong and a reason to watch. Libraries sometimes keep cats, echoing medieval protection of books. A library is a temple of paper, and paper has always tempted pests. Even in modern buildings, storage areas and hidden corners can invite mice, and the idea of a cat as a guardian still feels natural. Some libraries have kept cats as residents, partly for tradition and partly for the quiet companionship they bring to readers and staff. The cat becomes part of the building's identity, greeting visitors like a silent librarian who never shushes anyone. This practice also carries a historical echo. In earlier centuries, books were rare and precious, and protecting them was a serious task. A library cat connects that older world to the present, making preservation feel personal rather than abstract. It also changes the mood of a place devoted to silence. A cat can soften the space, making it feel lived in and welcoming. For many people, meeting a library cat becomes a memory attached to learning itself. The cat is not the collection, yet it becomes part of why the collection feels loved. Theatre and opera history includes cats backstage as unofficial residents. Backstage spaces are full of hiding places, warm corners, and quiet hours between performances. They also attract rodents, thanks to costumes, storage rooms, and the crumbs that come with long working nights. Cats have often slipped into this world, sometimes brought deliberately for pest control, sometimes adopted by performers and staff who needed a small companion in a demanding job. A theatre cat can become part of local lore, recognized by generations of workers and whispered about like a friendly ghost. There is something fitting about it. The stage is a place of illusion, and a cat already moves like it owns secrets. These cats also reveal the human side of performance history. Behind the glamour, there is labor, fatigue, and the need for comfort. A cat offers that without asking questions. In the pause between acts, when the building settles and the audience is gone, a cat's presence can make the empty theater feel safe. It is a quiet continuity in a world that changes every night. Cats appear on ancient coins, seals, and amulets across civilizations. When an image is stamped on a coin or pressed into a seal, it carries authority. It represents what a society chooses to circulate, to certify, and to protect. Cats appear in this kind of material culture in multiple places, which tells us they were not only household animals. They were symbols worth carrying in a pocket or wearing on the body. A seal might mark ownership. An amulet might promise protection. A coin might spread a familiar figure through markets and ports where strangers met. The cat's presence in these objects suggests meaning that traveled with people, not just with stories. It also gives historians durable evidence, because metal and stone outlast paper and memory. When you hold an ancient token that bears a cat, you are holding a decision made long ago about what matters. The cat becomes a sign of identity, luck, guardianship, or power, depending on the culture. Either way, it is a striking promotion for an animal that often prefers the margins. Here, it stands at the center, literally stamped into history. Cat-themed superstitions influenced architecture, with cat doors and hidden spaces. Homes are not only built from wood and stone, they are built from beliefs. In many places, people treated cats as guardians of the threshold, so buildings quietly adapted. Small cat doors let a working hunter come and go without waking the household, and that changed how people thought about boundaries. A wall was not fully closed if a cat needed passage. Some homes also included tucked-away corners, warm lofts, and sheltered gaps where cats could sleep and still keep watch over stored food. Superstition added another layer. If a cat was seen as a protector against misfortune, then making space for it felt like more than convenience. It felt like insurance. Architecture became a partnership, shaped by the animal's habits and the human hope that those habits could guard the home. A cat's route through a building could become part of the building's design, as real as any hallway. Some buildings contained dried cats as folk charms against misfortune. There is a darker chapter in the history of belief. In parts of Europe, builders sometimes placed the preserved body of a cat inside walls, under floors, or near chimneys as a protective charm. It sounds shocking now, yet it reflects a time when people tried to bargain with danger using whatever symbols they trusted. A house could burn, children could fall ill, crops could fail, and explanations were often incomplete. A hidden cat was meant to stand guard against unseen threats, like a silent sentinel sealed into the structure. These finds are rare, but they appear often enough to show a pattern of fear and ritual. Archaeologists sometimes discover them during renovations, centuries after the original builders died. That moment can feel like opening a private letter from the past, except the letter is made of grief and superstition. It reminds us that cats were considered powerful, even when that power was misunderstood, and it shows how far people would go to feel protected. Archaeologists sometimes find cat paw prints preserved in ancient roof tiles. Sometimes history is not carved by kings. Sometimes it is stepped into wet clay. In ancient workshops, roof tiles were shaped and laid out to dry, and a curious cat could wander straight across the soft surface. When the tile was fired, the paw prints hardened into a permanent record of a small trespass. Centuries later, archaeologists can find those tiles and see the exact spacing of the steps, the pause of a turn, even the slide of a foot that lost grip for a moment. It is an intimate kind of evidence because it captures a living act rather than a planned symbol. The cat did not know it was leaving a signature for the future. That is what makes it so moving. A paw print on a roof tile collapses time. It says that cats lived near human workspaces long enough to roam freely, and it shows that the ancient world had its own ordinary interruptions, including a cat deciding it owned the place. Diplomatic gifts sometimes included cats, spreading breeds between courts. Diplomacy has always used gifts to speak without words. A gift can signal respect, alliance, and shared taste. In some eras, animals were part of that language, and cats could be offered as rare, prestigious companions. A court that received an unusual cat was receiving more than a pet. It was receiving a living emblem of distance, access, and connection. The cat would be shown, discussed, and admired, and that attention could create demand for similar animals. Over time, that can help spread particular types of cats between elite households, long before modern breeding clubs existed. It also changes how you picture international relations. Behind formal letters and ceremonies, there may be a small carrier opened in a palace room, revealing a cat that becomes the talk of the court. The animal then enters art, gossip, and domestic life in a new place. In that way, diplomacy could move genetics as well as politics. A cat carried across borders could shape fashion, and fashion could shape history. Cats became symbols in political cartoons to mock power and vanity. Political cartoons needed shortcuts that people could recognize instantly. Cats offered a rich toolkit. A puffed-up cat could stand for arrogance. A sneaky cat could stand for corruption. A cat with a smug grin could stand for a leader who thought the public was easily fooled. Because cats are familiar, the message landed quickly, even for readers who skimmed the paper. Cats also carry ambiguity. They can be charming and self-interested at the same time, which makes them perfect for satire. A cartoonist could draw a cat lounging on a throne, and the audience would understand the insult without any explanation. This symbolism spread through newspapers and posters, and it helped shape public opinion in a way that felt witty rather than preachy. The fascinating part is that the cat was not chosen at random. It was chosen because people already believed cats had attitude. Cartoons borrowed that belief and turned it into a political weapon, soft fur wrapped around sharp criticism. Ship cats sometimes earned medals, showing how humans valued their work. On some naval vessels, cats became more than practical pest control. They became morale symbols, mascots, and in rare cases, decorated figures. Awards and medals for animals might sound playful, yet they point to something serious. A ship is an emotional pressure cooker, and crews bond over anything that feels steady and familiar. A cat that kept rats away also kept spirits up, and that mattered during long deployments. In the 20th century, a few well-known ship cats were credited with protecting stores, boosting courage, and even helping crews endure danger, and some were formally honored for it. The point is not whether the cat understood the medal. The point is that humans did. They were publicly recognizing an animal's contribution to survival and cohesion. It is a striking inversion of hierarchy. An institution built on rank and discipline still found room to celebrate a small hunter that worked without orders and made life safer in the background. Some cities appointed official cat caretakers to manage public colonies. In many cities, free-roaming cat colonies become part of the urban fabric, especially around markets, docks, and back alleys where food scraps appear reliably. When those colonies grow, conflict often follows. Residents worry about noise, odor, and wildlife. Cat lovers worry about starvation, injury, and neglect. Some municipalities and local institutions responded with a surprising solution. They recognized that the cats were not going away, so they appointed caretakers to manage them. An official caretaker can coordinate feeding schedules, monitor health, and work with sterilization programs, which reduces suffering and reduces chaos. This also changes the story a city tells about itself. Instead of pretending the cats are invisible, it admits responsibility for a shared environment. The role can be formal or semi-formal, paid or supported, yet the effect is similar. It turns a stray population into a managed community, and it replaces endless crisis with ongoing stewardship. Ancient fishing communities kept cats to protect dried fish from theft. Where fish is food and income, dried fish is treasure. Coastal communities that preserved catches on racks or in storage sheds faced a relentless problem. Anything that smells like salt and protein attracts thieves, and those thieves are not always human. Rats and other scavengers can ruin a season's work quickly, and once a storehouse is compromised, loss spreads fast. Cats fit into these communities with a clear role. They guarded the edges of drying racks, patrolled sheds, and discouraged nighttime raids with their scent alone. This is a different picture of cat history, because it is not centered on grain fields or libraries. It is centered on shorelines, nets, and trade baskets. A cat in a fishing village was part of the local economy, and its success could be measured in intact food and steady meals. You can imagine the rhythm. Boats return, fish is hung to dry, and a cat begins its shift. The ocean provides, and the cat protects what the ocean gave. Cats appear in early legal disputes over property, theft, and value. When a cat is treated as property, it can end up in court records, and those records are wonderfully revealing. Legal disputes might involve a cat that was stolen, a cat that was sold and not delivered, or a cat blamed for damage that someone demanded repayment for. These cases sound small, yet they expose daily life with unusual clarity. They show that cats were valued enough to argue over, and that communities had to decide how to measure an animal's worth. Was it a working hunter? Was it a household companion? Was it a shared neighborhood presence that nobody truly owned? Courts often prefer clear categories, but cats resist them. A cat can belong to one home and still roam widely, which creates disputes that feel surprisingly modern. These legal fragments also show how people balanced affection with economics. A cat could be mourned, yet it could also be priced. When the law touches an animal, it reveals what a society thinks ownership means, and what it thinks a life is worth. Historical cookbooks mention cats mainly as protectors, not as food. If you scan old household guides and cookery books, cats rarely appear as ingredients. Instead, they appear at the edge of the kitchen story, as guardians of the pantry. That detail matters because cookbooks are practical documents. They record what a household expects to do, again and again. When cats are mentioned as protectors, it shows they were part of food safety before people had modern packaging and sealed storage. Flour, dried meat, cheese, and grain were all vulnerable, and a cat's presence could discourage pests that ruined meals and spread filth. The cookbook voice often assumes the reader already understands this, which makes the evidence stronger. It means the cat's role was ordinary, not exotic. It was built into the daily logic of running a household. This also highlights a cultural boundary. Even when communities were hungry, cats were often treated as useful allies, not as livestock. The kitchen recognized the cat as a fellow worker, one that kept the household fed by preventing loss rather than by being served on a plate. Cat ownership spread with railways as people carried pets between towns. Railways reshaped distance. A journey that once took days by wagon could be done far faster, and that changed how people moved with their belongings. It also changed how people moved with their animals. When families relocated for work, or when someone visited relatives for a season, a cat could travel too, tucked into a basket and carried onto a train. That movement helped cats spread between towns in a new way, not only by drifting on ships or through trade routes, but through ordinary migration and commuting life. Rail travel also created new kinds of communities, with station neighborhoods, boarding houses, and warehouses that attracted rodents and welcomed cats. Over time, the railway network became an invisible corridor for feline populations, mixing local cats with newcomers and changing the genetic and cultural landscape of pets. The idea of traveling with a cat also marks a shift in attachment. You do not carry an animal on a noisy train unless you consider it part of your life, not part of your property. The railway helped turn cats into portable family members. The modern indoor cat lifestyle rose with apartments and safer food storage. As more people moved into apartments, the old model of the roaming mouser began to clash with modern hazards. Traffic increased, neighborhoods grew denser, and conflicts with neighbors became more likely. At the same time, food storage improved. Sealed containers, better construction, and more reliable sanitation reduced the constant rodent pressure that once made outdoor hunting feel necessary. Together, these changes created the conditions for a new norm. Cats could live entirely indoors and still be well-fed, healthy, and secure. That shift also changed the emotional relationship. An indoor cat shares more hours with its people, which deepens routines and makes personality more visible. It also created new expectations around enrichment, because a cat indoors needs stimulation that a street provides naturally. This lifestyle is often presented as common sense today, yet it is historically recent. It emerged from architecture, technology, and changing ideas about responsibility. The indoor cat is a product of modern life, shaped by elevators and cupboards as much as by affection. Cat welfare laws expanded as societies debated animals as sentient companions. When societies begin describing animals as sentient, the debate changes tone. It moves from how do we manage animals to what do we owe them. Over time, this shift helped expand welfare laws that affect cats, including standards for shelter care, rules around cruelty, and expectations for responsible ownership. The details vary by place, yet the underlying change is cultural. People began arguing that a cat's pain matters in itself, not only because a cat is useful or owned. That argument often grew alongside urban life, veterinary advances, and the rise of pets as family members. Welfare laws also forced practical questions into public view. How do you balance individual freedom with animal safety? What should happen to neglected cats, and who pays for their care? These laws rarely appear in heroic narratives, yet they shape daily reality for millions of animals. A welfare statute is a quiet confession that a society is changing its moral boundaries. Cats, once valued mainly as hunters, became recognized as lives with experiences, and those experiences began to matter in courtrooms and policy. Across history, cats shifted from workers to family members in millions of homes. This is one of the most dramatic transformations in everyday history. For centuries, many cats earned their place by guarding food stores and reducing pests. Their value was measured in absence: fewer rodents, fewer ruined supplies, fewer sleepless nights. Over time, as cities changed and households became more insulated from constant scarcity, the cat's role expanded. A cat could still be useful, yet usefulness stopped being the whole story. People began naming cats more consistently, grieving them openly, and designing homes around them. The cat became a companion that shaped routines, not just a hunter that patrolled the edges. This shift also changed how people interpreted behavior. Independence stopped being a flaw and became part of the charm. The modern image of a cat as a member of the household is not ancient. It is a historical outcome built from sanitation, medicine, indoor living, and changing ethics. When you see a cat curled on a couch today, you are seeing the end of a very long journey, from granaries to living rooms, from work to belonging. Here we are, at the end of our long and winding journey through the shared history of cats and people. We've wandered through ancient storehouses and temple courtyards, across ship decks and monastery halls, through crowded cities and quiet homes. We've seen cats as hunters, guardians, symbols, travelers, and companions. They watched over grain and manuscripts, crossed oceans tucked beside sailors, slipped into folklore and art, and slowly found their way into our everyday lives. Always nearby, always adapting, always shaping history in small but meaningful ways. And now, as the story settles, there's nothing left to do but let it drift. Imagine those countless cats across time, curled beside hearths, pacing moonlit rooftops, or resting in the corners of rooms long gone. Their presence has always been steady, unhurried, and observant, a thread of continuity stretching quietly from the past into the present moment you're in right now. If you're still awake and feel like continuing the journey, another video will be waiting for you on the screen. And if you've enjoyed this calm walk through history, you're welcome to like the video, subscribe to the channel, or leave a thought below. It's a simple way to support these stories and help others find them too. But for now, allow the weight of the day to ease. Let your breathing slow without effort. Let your thoughts loosen their grip and wander where they please. Just rest in the feeling of having traveled far and of being safely home again. Sleep well, and good night.